Hour number 3, our third and final. Welcome to it live right here on the early line on SportsGrid on this Tuesday. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. One more hour to go on the Spiz Grizz on this Tuesday edition of TEL. A little bit of everything in this third and final hour. We continue to react to the opening day of the legal tampering window, really the start of the free agency frenzy in the National Football League. Who had the best day? You got your say in the Fade the Public poll. We'll hear from you in just a moment. We are approaching Major League Baseball's opening day in just about 2 weeks. Our insider, Craig Mish, joins us up next. Any concern around Garrett Cole for the Pinstripes? We will cipher through. Then around the association, and we set the stage for a huge Tuesday in college basketball. 5 automatic bids to the NCAA tournament on the line throughout this Tuesday. And the high major conferences, 2 of them, ACC and Big 12, enter conference championship week as well. It is one of the best weeks on the sports calendar. It is hour 3 on the early line.
And shout out to the people who are actually going to get their brackets on Sunday night, print them out, fill them out themselves, and bring those nice highlighters where you can put, yes, I'm moving forward, and no, this team has been knocked out, because I'm like everybody else. I used to love this. Like being back in the past year, Ben, is like to say, in my own cubicle. Like we weren't clicking things on the computer. You had your bracket right there, and you manually did it yourself. Right, and quite frankly, I'm at the age where I don't even remember who I even picked half the time in some of these lower-level games. So it's nice to have the bracket right there with you. Don't tell me, Donnie, go on your phone and check it out. It's not the way you're supposed to do it. Get the printed out bracket, have some fun. And also, real quick, as we welcome in the radio audience, you're watching and listening live here to the early line on a Wednesday morning edition. I think it's Wednesday. Is it Wednesday morning or Tuesday today?
Tuesday, Donnie.
Tuesday. There you go. Yeah.
Tuesday.
So I'm already looking forward to Sunday afternoon at this point. But by the way, there's nothing like filling out a bracket and, Ben, it being your only bracket. People more than 2 brackets or more than 1 bracket, get out of my. I don't have time for it. I don't have time.
Out of town. Hate it as well. You got one bracket. If you want a second because your buddies are in a pool and you want to mess around, okay. But you got one bracket, and that's the bracket you have to focus on. And then the bets through each and every day of the NCAA tournament that we will take you through. No need to wait until the end of your bracket challenge when you can be profitable each and every step of this journey in the month of March, in March Madness. That includes Conference Championship Week. Who needs a radio cue? Donnie Rightside has us covered. So let's look back on the opening day of the legal tampering window in the National Football League. We should really just call it the start of free agency. It was the start of free agency in the NFL, even if the league year does not officially begin until tomorrow afternoon. And we asked the people, who had the best day on day number 1 of the NFL's free agency? We gave you 2 franchises, 1 player, and then an other that we could ask for your reply. Donnie Rightside had an issue with the structure of the poll, but most of the public going with Kirk Cousins. 53%, in fact, saying Kirk Cousins becoming the new starting quarterback in Atlanta, and all the money he has made, he had the best day in front of Philadelphia, in front of Green Bay. We did have a reply from Brian Berryhill, by the way, to this Fade the Public poll. He said the Jaguars was a pretty good day. They added Calvin Ridley. They added Mitch Morse very early on. They are focusing on that offense to make sure everything is there for Trevor Lawrence. But Kirk Cousins gets my vote. Despite having an issue with the format of the Fade the Public poll, who did Donnie Rightside vote for?
I actually voted for the Green Bay Packers here, and it was really close with the Philadelphia Eagles. Impact player on offense, at running back, impact player on defense. One took a safety and one grabbed the defensive end, which was the Philadelphia Eagles grabbing the Huff from the New York Jets, which I think should help out. But also, again, it should be teams lined up with players. Look, Kirk Cousins made a lot of money. I understand that. Yeah, he's a winner on free agency, but that's not really what the question is actually supposed to be. It's supposed to be which teams actually want, or pick 3 players and an other. So we know we're on the same wavelength because other votes should come in as, let's just say it was the Packers, the Eagles, and we'll just use the Buffalo Bills, put 3 teams in there, and other. So others wouldn't come in and say like, yeah, I think Kirk Cousins had the best day overall at this point. No, you list the team. If there were 3 players listed here of who made the most money, the other votes would come in as players here. So it's a little bit convoluted as it winds up here. And also, Ben, as you pointed out, who had the best first day of free agency? We didn't even get the free agency yet. So there you go. The poll is all over the place.
Wow. Donnie says it is a defunct poll. It does not count based on legalities and the logistics
Let's redo this Wednesday.
of it all.
We'll redo it Wednesday.
All right, so what players or what teams would you all list together? Take out the other. Which 4 teams would you say had the best days? The Packers, the Eagles, I would both put there. I might actually say the Vikings. Who would be that third other team? The Raiders, Gardner Minshew, and Christian Wilkins? Who would you go with?
No, even the producers like to have fun with this. Like you throw in the Dallas Cowboys there because they obviously did nothing, and it's hilarious to sort of peg that with the Dallas Cowboys. But as long as it's uniform, we can get our thinking caps on. It's just too scatterbrained right now where the other could mean absolutely anything at this point. And that's what I'm upset about, that even 9% voted on. I have no idea.
Yeah. Talks a lot about how that Fade the Public poll was formed and then offers no actual suggestions when asked by his co-host of what those options would
Cowboys. Cowboys were the option.
With the sarcastic.
Put them in there.
Cowboys were yeah. Good. I like that. Now, players, obviously Kirk Cousins. I would also maybe throw in Brian Burns. What a day it was for him. 5-year, $150 million, and gets to lead the defunct Carolina Panthers to go join the Giants. And I understand it's not all that optimistic for the G-men, but at least it's slightly better. Christian Wilkins got paid. Landon Dickerson is now the highest paid guard in the history of the National Football League. Saquon should certainly be up there as well. 3-year, $37.75 million deal. Which team? So you said the Green Bay Packers. Do you think anybody became a truer conference contender yesterday? The Falcons, the Packers, the Eagles, anybody in the AFC?
I mean, it's hard to play up because the Eagles, whether or not they got Saquon Barkley, were going to be a contender here. I guess you could truly say the Atlanta Falcons because I think they took the next step with the most improvement from their team. And factoring in again, if you win your own division, you get a first-round playoff game at home regardless of what your record is. So if we're looking at overall, like Kirk Cousins / Atlanta Falcons probably had the best day because I do believe that team moved the needle more than anybody else because why? It was a quarterback that they got in the division that is down where they clearly have the best football team now. So I would go with the Atlanta Falcons.
So the Green Bay Packers had a really good day. Their odds didn't really move. Still 10-1 to win the NFC, fifth best price, 22-1 to win Super Bowl 59. A little bit of movement on the Eagles. Now only a 20-cent distinction in the NFC East. I have already bet Philadelphia to win that division. The Falcons by far saw the most movement because they had the biggest move of day number 1 of free agency. Quarterbacks moved the market more than anything else. The Falcons, an odds-on, -110 favorite to win the NFC South. Major League Baseball's opening day 2 weeks away. More next.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
This is
the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in. This is
the
Penn
always
State
going to be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
The Books are treating the Celtics 4 points better at minimum than maybe every single team in the NBA. And so far, I believe they've covered every game since the break.
The Celtics' strict goal here, anything less than a finals appearance and a finals championship is going to be a failure for the Celtics. They got all the pressure in the world across the board here.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Just over 2 weeks away from MLB's opening day in 2024. We welcome you to this Tuesday, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. I am Ben. He is Donnie. The man in the middle is Craig Mish, our MLB insider all across the SportsGrid network, the host of Newswire, in a little bit less than 50 minutes, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right here on the grid. Craig, I was down in your neck of the woods, as we have shared a few times on this show over the weekend. Spring training game between the Cardinals and the Mets at Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium over there in Palm Beach. And Craig, I stumbled my way up to the press box somehow. I didn't know they had a shrine to you and a seat reserved for Craig Mish for all of his contributions to the Marlins in Major League Baseball. I didn't know that. You didn't tell me.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that myself because I haven't been up to the press box this spring, believe it or not. So I guess I'll have to make my way up there. I have covered the team, not as much as I normally do, but sometimes. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go up there, and hopefully there's some food there, like some hot dogs and some chicken parm, Donnie. Hopefully that's the case.
I left you a little surprised, Craig. It rhymes with schmud schmite. And I'll let you figure out what that looks like. A tall boy of about 16 ounces. Anyway, as we keep it moving around Major League Baseball, you are welcome. I saw the Mets, but now to the other New York team. And it wasn't great news yesterday for the Yankees or Garrett Cole. Craig, I'm going to read you 2 reports. First from ESPN's Jeff Passan that said Yankees ace Garrett Cole will have an MRI on his right elbow. Manager Aaron Boone told reporters yesterday. Cole is coming off winning the American League Cy Young Award and has had difficulty bouncing back between spring training starts. That's what Boone said. But Brian Hawk, who covers the Yankees for MLB, also said that Boone, this is about Aaron Judge. That's on me. All right, I messed that up. Anyway, Garrett Cole is our first update here. That's my fault. All right, anyway, bad hosting. Right. We focus on only Garrett Cole first and foremost. Craig, how concerned are you or should we be about Garrett Cole's status entering opening day?
I mean, I'm more concerned for those tall boys sitting next to you in the studio, Ben, right now. I thought we'd be talking about Judge to start, but hey, we could do Cole. We could do both. Look, here's the situation. Obviously, it's more concerning for Cole than it is for Judge at this very moment, only because when you're talking about a pitching arm, and I think the way that they're describing it is the recovery for Cole. So after he pitches, potentially 2-3 days in, not feeling like he should after start. So that's why the MRI is there. Look, obviously it's speculation at this point, and so we can't really get into what the deal is, how serious it is. Is there a tear? Is there not a tear? Is he fine? Is this just dead arm? We have no idea. But the notion now that the Yankees are already halfway through spring training with $700 million on the payroll,
potentially not being ready for opening day is something that definitely should give people great pause for. I don't think that there is an answer out there in free agency, whether it's signing JD Martinez or Blake Snell, just to sort of patchwork this together. But it just does go to show you that the Yankees just are overvalued every year in every market. And something really has to happen is go a little bit wrong with them, and you end up making money on them. And I'm not rooting against the Yankees by any means. I mean, I grew up initially as a Yankees fan when I was very young, and I lived in New York. But just the reality is that a lot of people like Notre Dame, they like betting on them. They like betting on Tom Brady. They like betting on Alabama. And we are a sports betting network. And you have to understand that you're almost never going to get any kind of value with betting the Yankees. I'm guessing their win total is going to shoot down now from the mid-90s to under that. I would be very surprised, guys, right now if that total's still 92.5 on FanDuel. I mean, I know we're showing it there, but I would be very surprised if that's what it's going to be in a couple of days. Now, by the way, with Aaron Judge, look, they're going to downplay this 100%. This is what every team does, especially when you're trying to sell tickets for opening day. You're not going to tell people Aaron Judge is not going to be in the lineup opening day. All right? So at this point, what would I guess? Just based on track record for history, Aaron Judge is going to be out for a couple weeks. There's no question. They are not going to rush this. It's a 162-game season. The oblique is very dangerous. It could cost you a month or two. My guess is it costs him a couple of weeks. I think what he said is fair to the media this morning, which is basically he's hoping to be ready for opening day. I think there's still time for that. I think there is. But make no mistake about it. If you're paying to go to a spring training game in Florida to go watch the Yankees before opening day, I don't think you're going to see Judge play.
Yeah. Fans being angered, too, by the Yankees, because the interesting part is he got pulled out of the lineup after only 2 at-bats. Like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. It's 2 at-bats. I'm a little bit beat up here. We were led to believe that it's still that toe injury, but now we're hearing it's the oblique injury. And also, for one of the best pitchers in baseball to be having an MRI on his elbow before the season actually starts, we usually know how that ends up factoring in throughout the rest of the Major League Baseball season. Quick other baseball point for you, Craig, here, because this brings into it. Montgomery's still out on the market here, and also Snell. Now, the one team that we've always heard about were the Yankees and Snell, but being so far apart, could we be seeing here Snell like a 1-year deal and they try this again next year?
I don't think so. I don't like they call that the pillow contract, Donnie. I don't think so for Montgomery or Snell. I do think that there's a chance that they get a 4-year deal or a 3-year deal with the opt-outs as Scott Boras has done after 1 year. But I don't think you go from a rumored market of $160 million to 25 and 1. I don't think so. And the other thing is that this is a really hard conversation, I think, to have with Yankees fans. And maybe it's just me covering baseball and covering a different market in South Florida. But I got to tell you, the answer is not duct taping this for the Yankees right now. I don't think so. I think that you lose Cole. There is no replacing him. Blake Snell is not going to replace Garrett Cole. Cole's a superior pitcher, gets deeper into the games than Snell. Snell's very good. Make no mistake about it. All this is going to do is temporarily soothe the fans. You're going to, at the end of the season, you're going to be talking about how do we get rid of Stanton? How do we get rid of this guy? How do we trade this guy with all this money? The Yankees are never going to rebuild, and they're never going to take a step back as they shouldn't. They're the most popular team, making the most money maybe outside of the Dodgers in Major League Baseball. But I got to tell you, if they lose Cole for an extended period of time, and if this thing lingers with Judge, as obliques can over the course of the season, you cannot look at the Yankees as a first-place team or a second-place team, and maybe not even a third-place team going into the season.
So whether it is Aaron Judge or Garrett Cole, who knows? You guys did. You guys had that pretty hammered down. I appreciate your support during a rough moment for me. The Yankees did not see a ton of, not today, Craig, on Saturday, bad day to be a beer. Not today, at least not yet. Maybe after this performance, we hit the showers early. But anyway, Craig, we did not see any movement really on the Yankees win total. A little bit longer in the American League East divisional odds. We did see 70 cents of movement from plus 390 to plus 460. Still the second best price to win the American League pennant. But they were only 10 cents behind Houston, the Stros, the favorites, at plus 380. Now it's plus 460. Long term, that seems to be the field for New York. Quickly here, Craig, as we transition into the National Football League. Free agency frenzy yesterday. Biggest move, Kirk Cousins makes his way to Atlanta. 4-year deal, $180 million. Did you like the move for the Falcons?
The salary cap's a funny thing in the NFL. If there's like the floor and the ceiling, it's almost like you have to spend a certain amount of money, and that's why free agency is just so insane in the NFL. And by the way, a lot more fun than it is in the other sports. I think the move for the Falcons obviously puts them in the division that is very winnable. All they needed was good quarterback play. I can't tell you how many times I watched Ritter running toward the end zone last year, fumbling out of the end zone or fumbling behind himself. And look, they tried. They drafted a quarterback. They, had Arthur Smith there. It didn't work out. This is definitely, to me, the way to go. I think when I look at free agency, the most impressive move that I thought yesterday, and by the way, I'm not a huge fan of Saquon Barkley, but my gosh, do the Eagles do things right in free agency every year? It always feels like they make that move that is like, wow, they did that, and that's going to help them. Now, I know they crumbled last season, but man, Barkley with that offense and Jalen Hurts, if they could just figure out what happened to them at the end of the season, I think you got to look at the Eagles as one of the favorites again to win the NFC.
All about the money at the running back position, but the investment is certainly there in Philadelphia. Donnie Rightside happy about it. Craig Mish very happy. He will be on Newswire in just about 40 minutes at 11 a.m. Eastern. No beers until at least noon. Around the association up next.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like this is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is the Penn State rule.
Be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
The books are treating the Celtics 4 points better at minimum than maybe every single team in the NBA. And so far, I believe they've covered every game since the break.
The Celtics' strict goal here, anything less than a finals appearance and a finals championship is going to be a failure for the Celtics. They got all the pressure in the world across the board here.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Hardwood handicaps both around the association and in college basketball coming your way over the next 35 minutes to end out this Tuesday edition, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. 7-game NBA slate tonight. We'll run through some of the picks and previews that we have, then into college hoops. We start in Los Angeles, a matchup of two of the four best teams in the Western Conference. The Clippers, a 6.5-point favorite against the Minnesota Timberwolves, the over-under 215. We will see who is available out there for the T-Wolves. Of course, Karl Anthony Towns dealing with an injury. We did not see Rudy Gobert out there for Minnesota over the weekend. And Donnie, without the two big men and the defensive stalwarts for one of the best defensive teams in the association, we have seen the T-Wolves actually start to play games to the over. That gets my eye over 215.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in this game because it does seem low, right? And also take a look at the Clippers team. Last time we saw them out complaining about we play a little bit too early in the day on a Sunday. They should be full go tonight. Yeah. James Harden, Terrence Mann, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Ivica Zubac in the starting lineup. But for the Minnesota Timberwolves, we're waiting to see if they're getting back Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert anticipated being in the lineup tonight along with Kyle Anderson, Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, and Mike Conley. So we'll see how that pace will be because usually it's like Rudy Gobert. What's his job in there? To clog the lane, block shots, get rebounds, not add anything too much to the offensive market. When he doesn't play, you're right. It's like, hey, let's get up and down the court. We don't have the two big guys out here, which includes Karl Anthony Towns. For my money, and this is so big in the standings in the Western Conference, because if you're the Clippers, you should start to smell a little blood in the water saying, you know what, we can pass another opponent and increase our seed standing here by the end of the regular season. I think the Clippers handle their business. When sometimes it just comes down to, we got all our firepower, you don't, and we're at home. I'll go with the Clippers tonight in this one, Ben, but it is a low total for sure.
And you're right. We didn't see PG. We didn't see Kawhi. We didn't even see Russ for the Clippers on Sunday in that early matinee against Milwaukee. For the Clips this year, when booked as a home favorite, they have covered numbers 16-13 against the spread. But Los Angeles has dropped 5 of 9 games since the All-Star break. No covers in any of those 5 losses. They have covered in all 4 wins. So if they win outright, at least based on recent trends, that might lead us to a cover for the Clippers as well. Minnesota over in 2 straight and in 5 of their last 7. Again, a lot dependent. This game at 10 p.m. Eastern time. We're talking about it before 10:30 a.m. Eastern time on what that starting lineup looks like. As we keep it moving around the NBA tonight, we go from Southern California up to Northern California. The Kings, a very slight home underdog against the Bucks. Milwaukee laying 1 on the road, -116 live on that money line, over under 235 and a hook.
Oh, it feels a little like a setup to me, doesn't it? You take a look at the Sacramento Kings, -1 point favorites here overnight, now flipped over here to a favorite for the Milwaukee Bucks at -1. That total, 234.5 is the opening number, now sitting at 235.5. The tempo should absolutely be there tonight. And I look at this number and say, boy, aren't they just begging you to take the Milwaukee Bucks at this -1 price against the Sacramento Kings? We'll see what happens tonight. But if I'm a betting man, I do think it's a true coin flip. Would I lean towards the Bucks? Absolutely here. And so forth on the FanDuel Sportsbook. You click that stat spot. It's heavy on the Milwaukee Bucks, both on the side and also on the money itself. But if I'm looking at that 235.5, I think we get tempo. I think we get points. I think it goes over the total, which means big nights on the horizon for Damian Lillard and also Giannis Antetokounmpo. And of course, are you settling in on a triple-double on the opposite side by Sabonis? And what are you going to get out of De'Aaron Fox? Looks like we're going full gas tonight, and I expect to be a lot of points in this one, Ben.
I kind of lean with the Kings on the money line as the slight underdog. Sacramento this year, 13-8 against the spread as a dog. This is a virtual pick'em, a coin flip. Sacramento straight up in 21 games as an underdog. They have won outright in 10 of them. Milwaukee started after the All-Star break on that 6-game win streak. They covered in all 6 victories. They bounced back on Sunday against the shorthanded Clippers team down in Los Angeles. They covered that number as a 6.5 point favorite. They have won 7 of 9. They have covered in all 7 wins, but after 7 straight unders following the All-Star break, 2 straight overs, we are going to see some pace tonight up in Sacktown. 235 and a hook, again, is that total. Quickly on the standings, to Donnie's point, the Clippers right now 3.5 games back of Oklahoma City. They sit in the 4 spot, but they have a 2.5 game lead over New Orleans, who is in the 5 spot in the Western Conference. They are 2 games behind Minnesota, who they play tonight. The T-Wolves only a game and a half back of Oklahoma City, but Denver in front of them. After one of the lowest scoring games we have seen in a very long time in the NBA, neither team reached 80 over the weekend. The 76ers and the Knicks face off tonight once again at inside Madison Square Garden. The Sixers won the game outright. New York lays 6 tonight. Will we see more offense? Total 208 and a hook.
Yeah, numbers moving all over the place right now. Let's take a look at the opening numbers here. The New York Knicks at a -4.5 price, now sitting currently live at a -6 price. You take a look at the total, Ben, 212.5. That's dropped to 208.5 live. But I got to tell you, if we're looking at anticipated starting lineups, now the last game was an absolute rock fight. It was terrible to watch. The Philadelphia 76ers pulled out a victory. Very rare here, and we see it a lot in the NBA now, a rematch going back on the same home court here for the New York Knicks against the Philadelphia 76ers, but in the anticipated starting lineups tonight. How about this? Maxey, who missed the last couple games with the concussion, anticipated as possibly being back in the starting lineup, which would be Maxey, Lowry, Oubre, Harris, and Bamba. Not great here, but Tyrese Maxey is the go-getter who has a chance to get you 30 points here, something they didn't have in their last couple games. Let's take a look at the New York Knicks. Now, Jalen Brunson expected to be out there along with DiVincenzo, but how about this? Josh Hart, Isaiah Hartenstein, and OG Anunoby could be showing up in the starting lineup tonight. So if I look at that total, which is so low here, and yes, they played terribly in the last game. Rested teams, same court, better players back on the court. Why are we not going over this, Ben? 208.5? Come on now. I got to go over that total.
So here's the interesting thing. New York was one of the best teams in the month of January. I believe they were 14-2, and they covered in 13 of 14, but they went under a ton. In fact, in 32 games in the calendar year 2024, the Knicks have played 26 unders in 32 games. But when they were winning a ton, they were covering, and that was really OG Anunoby, who joined New York in 2024 after the trade from the Raptors. He last played on January 27th. If he is in the lineup and he is healthy, and the Knicks look more like the team we expect to make a run in the Eastern Conference playoffs, I might actually lay the 6 in favor of New York. We are going to see some offense tonight if that total is 208 and a hook. And by the way, neither team scored 80. The Sixers won 79-73 on Sunday evening inside MSG. First time since 2016, neither team reached the 80-point benchmark in an NBA game. We go to 240.5 tonight in Oklahoma City. The Thunder, a 6-point home favorite against the Pacers. We might not see all that many points, even if we go over inside the Mecca. I think we'll see some points tonight in OKC.
Absolutely. We're not looking at the AMC Pacers. This is the Indiana Pacers here going on the road. How about this total? Up from 235.5 overnight to 240.5, a total that we should be looking at great tempo here between these two teams with a favorite here of OKC -6. I want the Thunder here. You're now looking at the Thunder going, we should be able to separate ourselves here from the Minnesota Timberwolves, and we then have to hold off the Denver Nuggets, because what you're looking for OKC is it's not so much winning down the stretch and proving to everybody that they can win basketball games. It's actually that seed line. If you want to match up against the Denver Nuggets, you want 4 games in your own building, not 4 games in the Mile High City here. Give me the OKC Thunder to cover that spread tonight, and we should get an extremely fun basketball game with a lot of great props here. I think this game also goes over the total. I'm buying in to that steam, pushing that up to the 240s.
So the Thunder have a half-game lead in the Western Conference, and yet the FanDuel Sportsbook has the reigning NBA champs, the Nuggets, as the odds-on favorite, -115, to eventually take that number 1 overall seed out west. I think Oklahoma City has different designs. OKC, one of the best cover teams, second best cover team in the NBA, only behind Orlando, 39-24-1 against the spread, 29-19 this year. ATS as the favored side. Indiana, really good covering numbers, though, as a dog as well. 19-13-2. I'm going to sit back and watch this game and hope we see some points. So now we transition from the NBA, into conference championship week. 2 of the high major conferences enter the fold in their conference tournaments today. That would be the ACC and the Big 12. The teams that you will see on this list: not really featured in the teams that will play today. In the ACC, North Carolina, the short favorite, plus 160, but only a 20-cent gap in front of Duke, plus 180 for the Blue Devils. Of course, we know all of the theatrics of Saturday night inside Cameron Indoor. Those are the top 2 seeds, though, DRS, in the ACC tournament.
Yeah, and should be looking to walk away with the tournament, quite frankly, because you're taking a look at what a normally really deep ACC would be. It's not that this year. You take a look at Wake Forest, quality opponent, yes. You take a look at Clemson and Pittsburgh, average opponents here. The one interesting one here is Virginia, sitting on that cut line right now. And for me, I know I'm speaking to a lot of America right now. And you say, you want to keep America great again, keep Virginia out of the actual tournament here, because we don't want to see that basketball. We don't want to see you walking up and down the court. We don't want to see 39 points out of you, hoping to hold another team to 37. Keep Virginia out of the field of 68. Keep them out of it.
So we do have a couple of ACC games up to start off the day. Notre Dame, a slight favorite against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech pulled off some stunners in Atlanta this year. We'll have plenty more around college basketball in just a little bit. Notre Dame's been covering numbers as of late. They have covered in 6 of their last 8. They've also gone over in 4 of those 8 as well. We'll look at some games at the high major level. We'll give you some picks, some breakdowns, and some plays on the other side, and put it all with a bow in terms of those conference tournament prices and odds as well. Up next, here on the early line.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like this is a guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is the Penn
always
State
going to
rule.
be better than the West half.
Yep.
That one year that lightning in a bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
The books are treating the Celtics 4 points better at minimum than maybe every single team in the NBA. And so far, I believe they've covered every game since the break.
The Celtics' strict goal here, anything less than a finals appearance and a finals championship is going to be a failure for the Celtics. They got all the pressure in the world across the board here.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the early line. It is Tuesday. In my estimation, it is the unofficial official start of Conference Championship Week at the Division I level in men's college basketball. We have seen conference tournaments around the country for the last 7 or 8 days, but with the regular season finales at the high major level last weekend, and we have games starting today as of 11:30 a.m. Eastern time in less than an hour, and with games starting up and through Selection Sunday, no later than noon Eastern, this is the time. This is Conference Championship Week, and as Donnie's good friend yesterday, John Rothstein, might say, this is March. So, DRS, we looked at the ACC tournament odds. North Carolina and Duke predicted to have a showdown once again for a third time this year in the tournament title game. But a couple of ACC teams, 3 games, in fact, in action today. The first game up is Notre Dame against Georgia Tech. 2 teams that are good covering numbers as a dog. The Irish in year number 1 under Micah Shrewsbury, actually the favorite. A very slow pace for Notre Dame, but a low total of 130.5 does catch my eye.
Yeah, this game not catching my eye all that much. 2 basketball teams that probably, just playing at their last legs at this point. Efficiency on offense, you ain't getting that from which is interesting too. Under Mike Bray, efficiency on Notre Dame went hand in hand. There's 15 teams in conference play. They're 15th right now in conference play in the ACC. But you know who's terrible on defense? It's Georgia Tech at 14th here. The one interesting thing that might catch my eye, I love styles that make fights here. Even though you're taking a look at Notre Dame, who's really bad on offense, they love to shoot the 3-point shot. 10th in conference play at letting you shoot the 3-point shot is Georgia Tech. So if I had to go with a wager here, even though I think Notre Dame is really bad, I think they're the better basketball team on the court today. I'll take them. If they can go average from 3-point range, I think they win here.
So here's my best bet in the 3 ACC games that we have, because we're not sure about Nigel Pack's status. I actually like the over in NC State Louisville. This should probably be the last game that Kenny Payne coaches as the head coach of the Cards. They've had a lot of totals this year in the 150s. NC State lost 4 straight to end the year, did not cover, a dog in all 4, but as a favorite in the Pack laying 8.5, 9 today against Louisville. In 3 of their last 4 ACC games as a favorite, we have seen that total to the over. Louisville not good at anything on a basketball floor. I like the over of 148.5. If Nigel Pack plays tonight for Miami against Boston College, it's been a disastrous season for the Canes, a Final Four team a season ago. So much returning talent under Jim Larinaga. They've lost 9 straight to end out the regular season. If Nigel Pack plays and the line is working in favor of Miami, I would probably back the Hurricanes. But when you type in Nigel Pack Miami onto the Google interwebs, the first thing you see is Donnie Rightside calling the guy a lame for not really playing much at the end of this year.
Yeah, by the way, this is the rematch of what I thought was a very good spot for the Miami Hurricanes at home against BC, who had a good first half. Nigel Pack actually got banged up in the first half with one of those knees at the second half, and Miami collapsed. Because this is what's interesting, where we talk about an ACC tournament that's so top-heavy here. North Carolina the favorite. And by the way, a couple days ago, the FanDuel Sportsbook actually opened Duke as the favorite in this tournament, which I disagreed with, but North Carolina's overtaken them at a plus 160 price. But if you look, Wake Forest, Clemson, Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, NC State, Florida State, Miami, all in the same boat to me. So when you look at the Miami Hurricanes, they're a 90-1 price to win the ACC. And I preface this again by saying they're not going to win the ACC, but if they can win a game or two, you could probably turn that into a profit. But again, you can't bet them knowing that one of their best players is out. And also, the worst collapse we've seen since the Philadelphia Eagles down the stretch here. I mean, Miami hasn't won in eons here, so expecting them to go on a run in the ACC championship game. But then again, it's not a 9-1 price to win it, Ben. It's 90-1 for Miami to win the ACC tournament.
Absolutely so. A couple of teams to keep an eye on in the ACC that are very firmly on the bubble. That includes Wake Forest, who had a disastrous loss to Georgia Tech a week ago in the final week of the regular season. 8-1 number Virginia is not solidified by any means. Keep an eye on what the Cavaliers do throughout this ACC tournament. Just again, teams to know as you get going. Big 12, we have some action today as well in Kansas City. Houston, in its first year in the league, wins the regular season crown. They will be the 1 seed in the Big 12 tournament, followed by Iowa State. Even money on Houston plus 100, a drop off of over $3 to Iowa State at plus 430. But Donnie, you brought up Baylor and BYU. They will be in there in consideration as well. The Bears 6-1, the Cougars in their first Big 12 season 11-1, one of the top 4 seeds in the Big 12.
And by the way, we just talked about odds. I wish I had them up because, I don't have the greatest memory. But Kansas now is a 25-1 when I believe they were 13, 14, or 15-1
16.
Just a few moments ago. 16-1. Yeah, they're now showing up as 25-1 to win the Big 12. And also, those two teams on the second level, Baylor and BYU, were much lower. Now sit at plus 550 and 11-1. So some of those shifts coming up, and I agree with that here. I believe Baylor and BYU have fantastic odds here. Not as good as what they were roughly a half hour ago, but still legitimate. Houston probably should win this year, but we know battle tested all the way through neutral court sites. It's going to be fun to watch it play out. In Kansas, again, dropping down to 25-1, no surprise here, losing basically 2 starters for the tournament. They won't be a player here. Let's see if Baylor, BYU, Texas Tech, or even Texas can rise up to the occasion and maybe steal that automatic bid here.
So it's really interesting. By the way, BYU, the 5 seed, Texas Tech is the 4 seed, Baylor, the 3 seed in the Big 12 tournament. Kansas City is often seen as a home floor advantage for the Jayhawks. Not really the case, and I think some of that movement might be based on health. We saw Hunter Dickinson leave early on Saturday in that second half against Houston, in which the Cougs won by 30. Kevin McCullough Jr. has been banged up with injuries as well. 13-1 on Kansas. You were right. Now 25-1 to win the Big 12. A couple of games that we have in Big 12 action today, starting very early on, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, UCF. First year in the league against Oklahoma State, 3.5-point spread in favor of the Knights. Then we have Cincinnati and West Virginia as well. Any thoughts, DRS, in either of the 2 games to start off Big 12 conference tournament action today in KC Mo?
Bad offenses there with for Oklahoma State and UCF. But let's get to the point of this here. 14 teams in the Big 12. UCF is 14th overall in efficiency, which means they don't do very much well, which includes shooting the 3-point shot. They're 13th in percentage here out of 14 teams. However, they do try to increase it, but Oklahoma City, as I keep on talking about NBA, Oklahoma State's defense should be able to handle that. But on the offensive end of it, take a look at Oklahoma State, which again, not great in efficiency on offense. 3-point shots for them, 3rd in conference play. 42% of their shots come from 3-point range. 10th in defending here of giving up 3-point shots is UCF. So how bad UCF's the offense is, they don't actually like to shoot the 3-point shot. Give me Oklahoma State in this game. I think they'll win this one.
It is really interesting. These games are on a neutral floor. West Virginia, who was the bottom team in the Big 12 this year, winless. Not in Morgantown, or at least in true road games throughout this season. They dropped their final 5 games, 9 of their last 10, only covered twice in that span as an underdog, getting 9.5 against Cincinnati today. So those are the high major conference tournaments that start on this Tuesday. The rest of the Power 6 at the high major level begin on a Wednesday. Now we go back to conference tournaments that we have in action on this Tuesday and on Wednesday as well. A10 starts today. It's actually the first game up, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Davidson, a short favorite against Fordham. I told you to keep an eye on Loyola Chicago. Dayton booked as the favorite. The Flyers, the 3 seed. The Ramblers, the 2 seed. The top team in the tournament in the Atlantic 10, played in Brooklyn, is Richmond. They are the 1 seed. The MAC, Fairfield, the favorite. They start today as well. CUSA, they begin in action. Liberty, a great team all year. Not the favorite, though, entering the CUSA tournament.
But, yeah, there's a lot of good ones to look at. Also, let me just ask you this question here, because the FanDuel Sportsbook not posting odds right now. It's in the American Conference. The top 4 teams listed currently, Florida Atlantic, Memphis, SMU, and South Florida here. I think there's a legitimate chance any one of those 4 can win it. And obviously, FAU, who was everybody's darlings last year, is the favorite to win this and get the automatic bid at a plus 170 price. But as I scroll down, Ben, I don't see those Temple Owls listed here with a legitimate chance to win the AAC. And John Rothstein came on yesterday, and while we were in the quote-unquote green room before we were about to go on, what are the odds that Temple can make a run after a big win over UTSA? So interesting, no betting markets here for Temple due to some questionary things, I should say, over the past week. But you're looking at deep prices in this conference, and I do think it's stacked heavy here at the top. But again, top 4 teams in this conference, legitimate chances to cut down the nets here as the American champions, which would have been those Houston Cougars had they not left for the Big 12, who they are now favored to cut down the nets in the Big 12 conference tournament as well. So interesting times here and changing on a year-to-year basis.
The Owls, the favorites at plus 170. Memphis and SMU behind plus 440 for both. South Florida is the number 1 seed in the regular season champs. They have been great this year, a 5-1 number on the Bulls. Let's get to the action that we have on this Tuesday. 5 conference tournaments have their title game, which means 5 spots in the big dance in the 2024 men's NCAA tournament on the line. The best game of the night, the top 25 tilt in Las Vegas in the WCC Tournament Championship game. 17th ranked Gonzaga, 21st ranked St. Mary's face off tonight. They ended the regular season against one another. The Zags continued their 8-game win streak, now make that 9, snapping a perfect year for the Gales in this conference. Gonzaga was a 4-point road favorite in Moraga. They're a 3.5-point favorite tonight on the neutral floor. That is Las Vegas. Over-under stands at 138.5.
Before the tournament, I thought Gonzaga would win this, and also thought Gonzaga had a legitimate chance to go on the road in Moraga and beat St. Mary's, even though we talked about how they had already wrapped up the conference, how big of a game that is, because this is a true rivalry. Now they're going to meet once again in Las Vegas to cut down the nets to get that automatic bid. Both of these teams will be going into the tournament, and the loser will be an at-large bid. But styles make fights here. This is awesome to watch this play out. Number 1 offense in conference play versus the number 1 defense. You take a look at St. Mary's on offense, number 2 in efficiency versus Gonzaga's number 2 most efficient defense. But if we're looking at the 3-point shot, you're looking at Gonzaga. Doesn't rely on that here. 9th in conference play at total volume. You know who's the best team at chasing you off the 3-point line? It's St. Mary's. So then we flip it over to what does Gonzaga want to do and what does St. Mary's allow you to do? If they do, they have great defense, but hear me out on this. Point distribution, number 1 inside the arc. It's Gonzaga at close to 59% of their offense comes from there. Take a look at this. Number 2 in letting you score outside the 3-point line. That is St. Mary's defense here. So I think Gonzaga is the better team. I'll lay the 3.5. But if we're looking at styles that make fights, both of these offenses fit the pattern of what the other team technically doesn't want to stop you from doing. So I'll take the over in this game out here as well as in the WCC.
Me as well. In the 9-game win streak for Gonzaga, they have covered in 6 of the victories. They have also gone over in 6 of the 9. One of the unders, that regular season finale against St. Mary's, total was at 136.5, stayed well under, 70-57, the victory for the Zags. But St. Mary's, despite having the 5th slowest tempo in college basketball, over in 4 of their last 5, the only under the game against Gonzaga. They're getting paced up just a little bit. I like the over tonight. Here are the 4 other conference tournament title games with berths into the NCAA tournament at stake. In the Colonial, Charleston, a 7.5-point favorite against Stony Brook. Milwaukee, the 6th seed in the Horizon, continues their magical run against Oakland, the top seed. The Grizz laying 4.5. Merrimack and Wagner in the NEC, 7.5-point number in the Summit, South Dakota State, and Denver. A best bet next.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
this
is a guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is
they're
the Penn
always
State
going to
rule.
be better than the West half.
Yep.
And that 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too, because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
The Books are treating the Celtics 4 points better at minimum than maybe every single team in the NBA. And so far, I believe they've covered every game since the break.
The Celtics' strict goal here, anything less than a finals appearance and a finals championship is going to be a failure for the Celtics. They got all the pressure in the world across the board here.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the early line for just a few more minutes, closing out our 3 hours together. But before we do, it is time for a best bet. I am Ben Stevens. He is Donnie Rightside. Before we say farewell and before we say goodbye, it is time on this Tuesday for Bye Bye Bye. I mean, the college basketball card with conference tournament futures during conference championship week and individual plays on this Tuesday is robust. Donnie Rightside, what gets your attention?
All right, this being the penultimate day of the work week here, I am not going to NCAA action. I'm going to NBA action today, and I'm going to line up the Philadelphia 76ers in the Garden to start the party before the Big East tournament. Over 208.5. Everybody's going to look at that last game and say, there's no way they can even approach 200 points. Better players will play tonight, fully rested. They get over the total of 208.5. That's the best bet for me tonight.
Obviously, the 79-73 win for Philly on Sunday stayed under a total of 212, but now it has dropped with the same two teams in the same venue, but you add Tyrese Maxey back expectedly for the 76ers and OG Anunoby on the other side for the Knicks by 3.5 points. So your best players are back, and we can't get to 210. It doesn't need to be 240, just over 208.5. I like a lot of overs today in college basketball, but my main focus is on the WCC tournament title game tonight between Gonzaga and St. Mary's. What a star-studded affair in Las Vegas. 17th ranked Gonzaga, 21st ranked St. Mary's. Total at 138.5. St. Mary's over in 5 of its last 6 games, despite one of the slowest tempos in college basketball. The only under against Gonzaga in the regular season finale. I don't think we see the same type of play tonight in Las Vegas with a conference championship during this tournament at stake. Over 138.5. Over in the Horizon League final. Oakland laying 4.5 against Milwaukee. 150 and a hook. Over NC State Louisville. We could go on, and we'll do so on Wednesday, 8 a.m. Eastern, live right here on the early line.
smarter to be on SportsGrid.